Howdy y'all, and welcome to Sweet Tea and a Movie. Today we are talking about Elysium. You know what the good thing about sweet tea is? You don't have to be rich to enjoy it. So before I start reviewing the movie, I'm gonna say this. I wasn't too interested in Elysium beforehand. I had seen the trailers and I thought they looked cool, but I just wasn't completely interested in seeing the movie. And then my uncle wanted to see it and I said, sure, let's go see it. So I did. And to be fair, I'm happy I did go see it because it was pretty cool. But let's talk about the movie itself. First, let's talk about the acting. The acting was pretty good in this movie, actually. I enjoyed the performances of a lot of the people. The two main stars that you can guess are from the trailer are Matt Damon and Jodie Foster. Matt Damon has definitely come a long way from where he started, and he does a pretty good job in this movie. It feels like he really encompasses his role well, and it feels like he's really giving a good performance due for the role. It's very natural, and he even has some fun with it, and that's good. It's good to be able to see an actor enjoying their role. Just like Jodie Foster, and I really liked her performance in this movie because there's something about her character that she brings to it that's like a subtle sort of hiss, like an underlying danger, and it's just, when you look at her face when she performs, it's just so good. It's so enjoyable to watch her, and she just does an absolutely great job in the movie, and I feel like she should have gotten more screen time, to be honest, but that's a different thing for a different day. I also like some of the side characters in the movie. Spider, the sort of side character that helps out Matt Damon for a cost, he's pretty fun. It's kind of hard to understand what he says at times, but when you do, he says some pretty good stuff, and he's just a fun dude to watch on screen. As is the guy who plays Kruger, one of the main villains of the movie, and that dude, first of all, great South African accent. Just really fun to listen to, and definitely puts a sort of edge to the character, and I like that. And he's a really fun villain to just watch him perform because he's much more the action villain, whereas Jodie Foster is more of the mental and cerebral villain. Overall, the acting is pretty good in this movie, so good job on that. The story. Now, if you've seen the trailer for this movie, I'm not breaking any spoiling rules here. The moral theme that they're trying to push with this movie is about as subtle as like a pillowcase full of bricks to the face. It's essentially, rich versus poor, and it sort of makes the rich look evil and it victimizes the poor. And, just because, I will say this, just because it's not a subtle theme doesn't mean it's still not delivered well. I think a theme can be overt in its message as long as it's still delivered well. And I think because of the course of events that happen throughout the movie, it is pretty much delivered well enough. One thing that really impressed me about the story is the fact that it has a good second act that pushes into a very good third act. The first act, for me, felt a little slow, felt a little draggy. I felt like they took a little too much time on it, could have sped it up a little bit. But yeah, I was definitely impressed because usually the second act in some movies, it sort of slows down, and that's where things maybe drag a little bit more, but it just it's like a rolling stone or a car. It just keeps going downhill and keeps gaining speed until the final climax, which is pretty good climax, to be honest. Really good fight scenes and action and everything, and it's just super fun. I do have my problems with the story, like one part that tested my suspension of disbelief so hard that it pulled me right out of the movie and just made me say out loud in the theater, oh, whatever. I'm not going to mention it because it's kind of a spoiler, but if you see the movie, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. But overall, pretty good story. Could have just used a little bit better pacing in the first act, though. Next, we have the music. Now, if you've seen this show a lot, you know that music is sort of important for me. Because if I can't remember any music from a movie, then it's just not good enough. And I'm happy to say that I do remember some of the music from this movie, and it's pretty good fitting music. It just works for the scenes really well. There's some memorable swells and melodies. For the most part, the music just works really well for the movie, and I don't really have anything else to say about that. It's just pretty good, so good job with the music. Finally, we have the settings and the cinematography. Now, usually, if you know me, settings are one of the most important things in a movie for me because I need to like what I see. Usually, if it's like a just gray looking city or if it's sort of a slum looking area, it just doesn't make my eye glitter with fascination, for lack of better words. But they do a really good job of actually capturing the area that it takes place, which for the most part the movie takes place in the future Los Angeles. Looks good, doesn't it? But yeah, they do a pretty good job of capturing the slums and the just very dystopian future society. And then Elysium looks really good too. It definitely looks like a sort of Richie Rich neighborhood in the sky. As far as the computer graphics and 3D and all that stuff, that looks really good. That's probably one of the things the movie's banking on to draw people in. And rightfully so, because it looks really good. The special effects and the 3D animation, just, I can tell a really good amount of time went into them, and it shows because it's really good. And then the camera work. Since this is a modern action movie, there is shaky cam in parts, especially where it doesn't need to be. And you know, that's sort of a pet peeve of a lot of people nowadays. It's just like, please just hold the camera still or something. Which they do sometimes, so good job for doing that, for holding the camera still sometimes. But there were a couple moments in the movie that made me just go, whoa, or ooh, with, you know, excitement because of the camera work. If you've seen Sherlock Holmes 2, I wish I knew the technique of this camera move, but it's a move where just the subject is in focus and everything else is blurred, and it's a stabilized shot, but it's very like rapid, like it's kind of like it stays on them, and it's a very sort of dynamic look. It's like dynamic, but it's stabilized. I wish I could explain it better, but it's hard. It just looks really cool, and it's very eye-catching. It's like different from anything else in the movie, and it looks really good. So absolutely great job for trying some new camera techniques that really catch the viewer's eyes. Very happy about that. Just as a side note, for anybody interested in seeing this movie, it definitely earns its R rating because, you know, there's some swearing in it, but also there's some pretty graphic violence, and if you have a weak stomach, you'll have to trust your instincts to know when to look away because you might gag into your mouth a little bit. As far as personal notes from me about the movie, like I said before, I'm glad I saw it because I think it was definitely worth the view. It's a pretty good story, if not a bit exhausting, because the whole movie is a struggle for Matt Damon's character to get to Elysium and to try to make everything better. And it's just a long struggle for him. He just goes through so much, and you feel kind of bad for his character, which is good that you can feel for a character. You know, it may have been a good thing that it's kind of exhausting, it may have been a bad thing, that's up to the viewer to decide. But despite all the good stuff I've said about it, I probably wouldn't see this movie again by myself, maybe with some friends, but I don't know if I'd really want to spend the time again to just watch it by myself. So with all that said and done, it's still a pretty good movie, and I would recommend it for people who really like sci-fi and people who like the movie District 9, because it's made by the same guy. So as far as the score, I give this movie a 7 out of 10. It's pretty good. And if you like sci-fi, if you like District 9, if you like really cool action sequences, and if you like parts of movies that make you go, whoa, I would suggest seeing this movie because it might give you something cool to look at. It's a pretty good movie. Go see it if you can. Peace!